We start with our Newsmaker segment and look again at the issue of changing the name of an iconic street in Kansas City. Voters decide next Tuesday whether the newly named Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard retains that designation or returns to the previous designation of the Paseo. Now, we've heard from panelists who have supported the name change. Now we talk with folks who want the Paseo name restored. From the Save the Paseo Committee, Diane Houston and Andre Logan, thanks to both of you for coming in. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
Let me start with you, Diane. One of the major issues, I think, is your belief that this was not done legally. This process was not done the way it is supposed to be done.
That's very true. We have a city charter that states that in order to change a street name, you need 75% of the consent of the property owners along that the boulevard or the street. And then also, Paseo is a boulevard, which means it's in the control of the Parks Board. So the Parks Board is the one that designates the street names, not the city council and not really even the voters. But in this case, they kind of sidestepped the whole issue and went straight to the city council.
This was done by the city council, and I believe it was then Councilman, now Mayor Lucas, who introduced the ordinance.
It was, along with Jermaine Reed, correct.
Andre, what are some other reasons that the Save the Paseo Committee wants the name returned, other than the legal questions involved?
Well, I mean, there's the legal, there's the historical significance of the Paseo, of course. The Paseo, of course, is a 10-mile stretch. And there, there's churches, there's high schools that have been named after the Paseo. Of course, the historical significance of it being one of the first boulevards in Kansas City, that is huge when it comes to the history of our city and the contributions that the Paseo throughout time has made, that people love, I guess, about the city or about the street itself.
We got an email from a lady who wanted me to ask you this question. You may have heard it before. Her argument is Paseo in Spanish means boulevard or passageway. And why can't it be called both, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Paseo,
Sure.
Other than it would be an extremely long sign?
Right. It could. I mean, it's not necessarily, this movement isn't necessarily to eradicate the name of Martin Luther King or not to honor Dr. Martin Luther King. The biggest part of this committee, what we wanted to do was bring it to the people so that they could vote on this. It's the heart of the matter is that, for those folks that live on the Paseo, the 1,800 property owners that live on Paseo, they needed to have a say in this process. And
they didn't.
And they didn't.
It must have been a challenge to have to do all the name change, address changes that individuals would have to do, and
that's,
businesses.
Right, and that's part of the process, is that the only thing that's actually been legally changed, and I think that this needs to be clarified as well, is nothing. I mean, the only thing is the signs. That's the only thing that's been changed. When the petition went active in March, they pretty much stopped all the renaming. So legally speaking, it's still the Paseo. And on that too, I mean, the Paseo does mean walk, but it's so significant to Kansas City. Somebody comes in from out of town into Kansas City and sees "the" in front of a street sign name, and they're going to ask questions like, what's that street all about?
Well, what about this argument that some make that if the name is changed from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that will suggest to the world that Kansas City is somehow insufficiently honoring Dr. King's memory?
Well, again, going back to the process and looking at what happens after November 5th, there should be a consensus and there should be leadership. Those folks that helped usher this in, whether it was Quentin Lucas or Jermaine Reed or the SCLC or the pastors, there should be a coming together of both sides to say, okay, what's the next step? How should we go about honoring Dr. Martin Luther King? If it's not this particular street, let's go about the right way to either rename another street or come up with another way to honor Dr. King.
Diane, you expect a big turnout on Tuesday?
I think we'll see a lot of passionate people on Tuesday. I don't think we'll have a great turnout, but there are a lot of people who are very passionate about this issue, who have been waiting since this petition went active.
On both sides?
I believe so. Mm-hmm. Yes, I do believe so.
Final question, Andre. I know you think you'll win, and the name will be changed.
Sure.
But let's say, for the point of discussion, it does not, and
right.
The name is continuing to be Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Is that the end of the battle?
That's the end. The people have spoken at that point.
Absolutely.
You okay with that?
I am, because I think that shows that we actually got democratic process finally. We
People
didn't
who
get
want
that
to know
before.
more can go to your website. It's a very nice one. I
you.
enjoyed looking at it. What is the address? Is
It's www.savethepaseo.com. You can see our mission statement there, which is to honor Dr. King, but to bring this community together.
Great to talk to both of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate you coming in. Good luck on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Diane Houston and Andre Logan from the Save the Paseo Committee. The election, as I mentioned, is next Tuesday. We'll talk about it next Thursday. Now let's meet the panel and start a ruckus.